get right into it. Screw introductions. Chuck Liddell gets knocked out again, this time by Rich Franklin, 4:55 of round 1. Very short little right hand to the chin, puts him down, and that's a wrap. I mean, to be fair, Chuck didn't look horrible in the fight. He landed some strikes. He looked okay. Probably the best he's looked since, I don't know, the Vanderlei fight, I would assume. But, you know, for the people that said, oh, Chuck's, you know, he's got his power back, he hit Rich flush, and it didn't do anything. I mean, he staggered a bit a couple times, but Rich was never in serious trouble, and Rich was out-voluming him, just like I said he was going to, and was on his way to winning that first round, even with that takedown by Chuck, which he did nothing with. Where do they go from here? That's the big question. Rich, I like that fight with Forrest Griffin. You know, Dana White said that could be where the winner goes. I like that fight. I've always wanted to see that fight for some reason. Probably because they fight very similarly. They both throw a lot of volume, throw a lot of kicks. They go to a lot of decisions. I think it'd be a really competitive 3-round fight. If they don't want to go that direction, you've got Lil Nog out there. I'd probably say those two are the big matchups right now for Rich Franklin. Excuse me. I don't think he's ever going to be a title challenger, but you can put him in these interesting kind of super fight type of roles, you know, Forrest Griffin, Lil Nog, maybe a Brandon Vera or Keith Jardine, you know, these kind of mid to upper tier level guys, and then if he wins enough fights, then maybe you can give him a fight against the big four. But entertaining 4 minutes and 55 seconds of action. I always like seeing Chuck Liddell get finished, so where does he go? There's two options for Liddell. Retire, Tito. That's it. If I'm Dana White, I'm probably telling him to retire because, you know, business aside, Chuck and Tito are very good friends, and I'm sure he doesn't want to see him get knocked out again. I'm sure this was painful for him, for Dana, and for Chuck. But if you're going to have him come back and have one last hoorah, it's got to be against Tito. I mean, beef is there, storyline is there. It's not going to be a main event, but solid co-main event, I would say. And it didn't mean anything before in terms of rankings or anything. Doesn't mean anything now, but it's a good fight for both guys. One of them's got to win, and both of them are sellable. So getting either guy a win is good for their careers, good for the UFC, good for business. So I think that should happen. But that's just the Tito fan in me, probably. All right, moving on to the co-main event, Mirko Cro Cop versus Pat Barry. Cro Cop wins by submission, rear naked choke, 4 minutes and 30 seconds of round number 3. A lot of late finishes in this. The Mike Pyle fight, the David Loiseau Mario Miranda fight, this fight, main event, Carlos Condit fight. A lot of like 4 minute plus finishes. All right, but Cro Cop gets that choke. He was beating up Barry pretty bad in that 3rd round, but really I think Barry was the one that kind of lost his fight for himself. You know, people are going to say Cro Cop is back, and that's going to put me in physical pain because, let's be honest, he looked okay in this fight. Physically, he was leaner, which is good. He should be. He started throwing kicks again. Good. 2 good notches up for Cro Cop, but now we can just fight relevant heavyweights. I mean, whether it's Ben Rothwell or Frank Mir or Nogueira, which I think are the 3 options for him next, either Rothwell, since they were going to do that fight already, the Nogueira rematch, or Mir. I think those are your best options at this point. And I think he loses all of those guys. I think Rothwell is probably the more competitive fight. If you want to move him up in the rankings, whatever, and, you know, get him more wins, you can match him up against Rothwell, but I'd probably still pick Rothwell in that fight. But he looked better, which is good. That means he can still be relatively competitive with some of these guys. Barry, I think he lost the fight for himself. I think he was too respectful. He didn't want to finish him in that second knockdown that he had. He should have went in and flurried on it. There's no reason he shouldn't. He didn't look great weight-wise. You know, I was talking to Sean, the MMA professor, who told me that Barry pretty much eats whatever he wants, and that's not what you have to do as an elite-level fighter. You know, when you're fighting in the main cards in the UFC, you can't just be eating whatever, even if you're a heavyweight, because You know, this is what happens. You gas out, the wheels start falling off, and you start getting hit with axe kicks. But, you know, Barry is a good guy. I think everyone with a soul likes Pat Barry. I hope he doesn't get cut, but I think it's going to happen. What I'd like to see happen is he gets one last shot against Yvel. I'd like to see both those guys get one more shot. Yvel kind of pulled the UFC out of a bad situation when they fought Dos Santos. He had a relatively decent, okay fight against Rothwell tonight, so I'd like to see them get matched up on an undercard or a spike card, you know, see them go at it. I think that'd be good stuff. But he needs to work on his work ethic, and needs to work on finishing fights. Otherwise, he's going to be, you know, screwed pretty much. P.Thiago and Martin Kampmann, you know, Kampmann puts on probably the best performance of his career. You know, they were saying that in the booth, if you will. But great performance by him. I mean, no one should really be surprised by the outcome. People should know by now that Kampmann's a very good fighter. I thought P.Thiago would have this one, but he looked kind of hesitant in the stand-up. Kampmann was always one step, you know, one step ahead of him, throwing that jab, throwing the straight right, kept P.Thiago off balance, used his wrestling. He was just too well-rounded for him, pretty much, you know. He could scramble, he could take position, he could outstrike him. He was doing everything well. Where does he go from here? I'm not sure. Another decent welterweight. Alright. Ben Rothwell versus Gilbert Yvel. Not a great fight by any means. I mean, decent. I don't want to see it ever again. But Ben Rothwell wins. I thought he won the first round and the third round, just outpositioned and outsized Gilbert Yvel, kind of like I thought he would. I thought he would pour on the offense more and not gas himself out, but he definitely did. Yvel had some decent offense. It was an alright fight, you know, much better than that atrocious heavyweight fight that we saw in Bellator on Thursday. But, you know, decent fight, I guess. I'm being probably too kind to it, like I usually do. But Rothwell, I mean, I already mentioned Cro Cop as being a potential opponent. Mir, another opponent. You know, mid-level to upper-level heavyweights. Carlos Condit versus Roy MacDonald. Fight of the night, you know, I think it's up there for fight of the year so far. I mean, we haven't got too many great ones. I put this one up near the top. I really, really enjoyed this fight. First round, obviously, never mind. The first round I gave to Carlos Condit. I thought he did better on the feet, and I thought when he was getting taken down, he did better work from the bottom. Second round I gave to MacDonald, and then the third round was all Condit. I mean, that was a beatdown. But Condit is just way too experienced. Condit was, you know, he always turns it on in the third round. MacDonald was over his head, I think. He kind of gassed himself out with the takedowns, I think. But Condit is a top 10 level opponent for a reason. But I think this showed how good Roy MacDonald can be. I mean, 20 years old, and he's in there, you know, going round for round. You know, some people had him up on the cards going in that third round. So that kind of shows how good he is already. He's only going to get better and better. I'd like to see him fight someone like a Mike Pyle in his next fight. You know, decent level guy who he can test himself against. But I hope they don't continue to give him these kind of really tough competition, because I don't think he's ready quite yet. I think in 2 years or so he can fight top 10 guys and beat them. But right now he needs to build himself up, get more experience, ring time, get in there in cage action, and be able to put on good performances. So good job by MacDonald. Great job by Carlos Condit turning on that third round. This is my ideal scenario, and this is what I thought of almost instantly. They need a co-headliner for UFC 120. They need someone for Dan Hardy to fight. I say you call up Carlos Condit. I think that'd be an awesome fight. Pick'em fight. Great two top 10 level guys, Carlos Condit and Dan Hardy. I think that's what needs to happen, in my opinion. Evan Dunham, man, great performance by him. Completely dominates Tyson Griffin. I thought it'd be a little more close, and I thought it'd be a split decision, which it was. What? Some judge gave that fight to Tyson Griffin. He must be sick in the head or on crack or something. Whoever that judge is, he needs to be taken to the woodshed along with Steve, no, not Mazzagatti, Yves Levine. who both performed horribly on this evening. But Evan Dunham, I'd like to see him fight the winner of Pellegrino and George Sotiropolous. Winner gets the title shot. How about that? Danzig and Wyman. Horrible, 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 horrible. Horrible stoppage by Eve Levine. I hope they have a rematch. Simple as that. Claude Patrick looks good. Mario Miranda sounds like he did well. James Wilks sounds like he dominated. Mike Pyle pulls off a great submission. Overall, good night of fights. I enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, guys. This has been my review video. Peace.